Last time on Dude, You Haven't Played This Game.
Man, this was such a good game.
That's it. I tire of you. Harley, send him to the future or something. I've got some choo-choo rocket to play.
Whoa, what's happening? Oh, this sucks. Whew. Oh, it's freezing out. I'm dressed like an 80s action star movie cliche. And I kind of want a chalupa. I wonder if Taco Bell's still open in the year 2191. But you know what? Everything's gonna be okay now. Why? Because I'm playing with power. Blade! Oh, come on. It was a perfect opportunity.
Power Blade. While this Natsume developed and Taito published game was known as Power Blazer in Japan, the localization to North America and Europe saw a name change and a facelift. The game is one of those titles that you often hear about, but there are plenty of mixed up opinions on whether or not it's this or its very expensive sequel that's the superior title. I can't help but recommend this game to any action game fan that's looking for a title that doesn't necessarily innovate, but still has all the right moves. While it's most famously known for its Arnold Schwarzenegger look-alike character, Nova, looks can be deceiving in more aspects than just its cover art. In fact, that's a story unto itself. When first taking sight of the infamous cover art, we see an image very closely resembling the Terminator himself. But what's more interesting is that this isn't Arnold at all. It's actually the artist of the piece himself, Mike Winterbauer. Winterbauer would often dress up as a character and take photographs to work off of when painting video game cover art. And when Mr. Schwarzenegger's lawyers showed up with legal troubles for the artist, he had to present the photograph as evidence that it was him and not the actor/bodybuilder. So who is this Nova fellow? Nova is the keeper of something called the Master Computer in the year 2191. After millions had perished in the previous centuries due to war, the remaining people began to rebuild and put their trust into the Master Computer. If it was to end up in the wrong hands, the secrets could destroy the colonies and possibly what remains of the world. And guess what happens?
Aliens, of course!
Aliens steal the data disk, taking over the 6 sectors, and it's up to Nova to get back the disk and regain control of the Master Computer. The plot keeps things simple enough so that the story doesn't get convoluted or contrived. This makes room for players to focus on the task at hand without getting confused by mundane storytelling. Gameplay is the major focus here, and the boys and girls at Natsume have crafted one of the slickest action games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Nova controls wonderfully with the D-pad, in a motion that's not unlike games like Mega Man. In fact, the game has a lot in common with some of the earlier Mega Man titles. You can choose any of the 6 sectors, and if you make a mistake and try to go into one you already finished, simply go back through the door. It's that simple. The A button jumps, and the B button throws your weapon, the mighty Power Blade.
But this little beauty has some of the finest boomerang action this side of Australia.
Throwing the boomerang, you'll notice the power bar towards the top of the screen goes down with each throw. Nova can collect various different power-ups that allows him to throw his weapon farther and faster. There's also a more powerful boomerang that's more of a pinkish hue, along with power-ups that allow Nova to throw more than one boomerang at a time. the physics on the boomerang almost always work out in your favor, with the weapon going behind you and jumping, only to whip back into your hands in the end. When you pick up the multi-boomerang, you can almost have a constant flow of attacks pouring from your hands, making it so you rarely miss an enemy. If you do, jump and you'll hit them on the back end. If you happen to miss some of them, launch the power bombs with the select button to kill all remaining enemies on the screen. You can even stockpile these and go after the boss, severely draining their life bar. All of these can be collected thanks to enemy drops, which happen often enough so that even when you die and lose some of your power-ups, you can regain them back fairly quickly with a few kills. And let's not forget the burgers. Thanks to respawning enemies, Nova can even farm for health if he's running low before he reaches the end of the level. Because the game's sectors have branching paths, they create an easygoing labyrinth that isn't as complex as something like Metroid, but isn't as linear as Mega Man. The mission in each sector is simple. Find the agent who's waiting for you and have him give you the access card to the database room so you can defeat the boss and retake control of each sector one at a time. What's up with these agents though? They all kinda look the same despite the beginning of the game focusing so hard at making them all unique with different names and different outfits.
You must be John Gordon.
That I am. Here's access to Sector 1.
Thank you much. Oh, hey, John.
John? Who's John? My name is David Straker, but to my friends, they call me Juicy.
Oh, yes.
Why do they call you Juicy?
You don't wanna know. But hey, here's access to Sector 5.
Thanks?
No problemo.
There's a few problems here, but not with controls or gameplay. Actually, the controls are so fluid and the gameplay is exciting and always keeps me coming back. Because the game has branching paths, it's fun to come to a crossroad and try to decide where you should go. This adds a bit more weight to the levels, making them feel huge and sprawling. However, playing this game on normal is just too easy. The enemies are usually pretty easy to kill, with most enemies having very easy attack patterns. Most times if I died, it was from the pits. All the enemies are a mix of robot soldiers with guns, to metal animals like fish, to this guy's face. Wait a minute, wasn't he in Blaster Master as well?
Of course, it has to be robots!
During your playthrough, you'll notice these small icons on the ground at various locations. Grabbing these give Nova a special power suit that allows him to throw an energy boomerang that doesn't come back like the regular weapon. The shot that you use is huge and can be thrown even farther than the most powered up boomerang. If Nova gets hit when the suit is equipped, it only takes out of the armor's 3 health squares. Lose all 3 and it's back to the normal duds for you. But this overpowered combat suit still allows you to collect health for your main health bar. This can at times be your saving grace if you are close to death and need to farm to collect health. Sweet. Meanwhile, in the present...
Hey Harley, let's watch some TV. So this was part of his research for the last episode? What a weirdo.
While the controls are some of the best on the console, the platforming mechanics will be your greatest enemy in this game. Nova's jump is just long enough to cross certain gaps, and when I died, it was from my own carelessness. I also always get bugged out by these smushing things that are fairly common in classic games. Here though, I constantly feel like I'm going to hit the top part and get hurt, but I don't. And so it leaves me with a feeling like I should have gotten hit, but didn't. There are many games that are less forgiving, such as the sequel to this game, which we'll get into next time. So seeing Nova touch the top of the trap without taking damage doesn't play by the same logic as many games in the same genre do. So it's a bit off-putting to say the least. The boss patterns are a bit too easy. Some can mess you up initially, but most were able to breeze right through without dying. If you lose all your lives, you start back at the beginning of the level where you continue, but what makes this easier is the data cards. If you've already met with the agent, even if you lose all your lives, you could just go right to the end boss, so as long as you remember where the door is, you could bypass hunting down the agent. This makes things way easier, and I highly suggest playing the game on the harder difficulty to at least make enemies harder to kill. The game tries to add challenge by cutting your power bar and losing the multi-boomerang and more powerful colored boomerang when you die, but these can be retrieved by the enemies during item drops pretty quickly, so it doesn't render Nova useless, just slows the momentum down a bit. And I can appreciate the effort made here to keep things balanced, but I guess the mechanic has been done to death in other games like Astion X and Legendary Axe 2, so I'm used to far more punishing difficulty than this. Does that make Power Blade inferior? No, not at all. It stands out on its own as a great action game on the NES, so it just means that your playthrough should be fairly easygoing. What I love about the visuals in this game is the sheer love for color. Power Blade celebrates the world, making skies crystal clear blue and locations big and booming. In most cases, you'll traverse buildings that feel very high up off the ground. And while there's not much to say in terms of variety of the level's visuals, what we have here is a game full of character, and I applaud the game's designers for not making things all gritty. The music is done by Kinyo Yamashita, who we've previously heard in games such as Castlevania. I mentioned her work on my Ghost Sweeper Makame review for the Super NES, and this soundtrack is a bit more in the middle of both games. It's got some great full-bodied songs with influences from Latin and more Caribbean melodies, which fall back on crisp drums and fat bass tones. A lot of these tracks sound a lot like something Miami Sound Machine would do back in the late 80s. All the songs here are catchy and will make you tap your toes to the beat, something that will help keep the pace up and keep you engaged as you fight each enemy. Power Blade is one of those games I can always fall back on. For the untrained, it's a well-polished action masterpiece that will keep you guessing on where to go, but to those who have played it a few times, it may be a bit too easy. It's a complete package that will impress most people who are looking for a memorable NES game to play. It intrigues the senses during your playthrough of both sound and sight, and it comes highly recommended. For veterans, bump that difficulty and enjoy the ride. Power Blade gets a big thumbs up in my book. And while it's not as difficult as I like my games, I can't fault the developers for making a game with such perfectly tight controls and mechanics. Anyways, the master computer is saved. Now I can go home. But how do I get back to the present? Well, I guess I'll figure something out. Hey guys, check out the episode on the left-hand side if you haven't already. It's the one right before this latest episode, and it sets up this current episode that you just watched. So if you're in the dark and you're wanting to know about all the inside jokes, check out that episode. And to the right-hand side, you can check out the episode for Shatterhand, which is in a very similar vein to this episode. It also is a Natsume title, so check out both of those episodes if you're interested. And again, thank you very much for watching.